Today on Locked On Red Wings, the Griffins' comeback falls short in overtime, and now they face elimination on Friday.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm formerly a broadcast producer for 97.1 The Ticket, where Scotty is the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Scotty, pretty straightforward episode for the people today. Griffins lost in overtime. We're just going to break that down for the people, what we saw, what we liked, and honestly, for most of that game, didn't like out of the Griffins' performance. How's Thursday going for you, buddy? Happy Thursday.
Yeah, happy Thursday, man. It's going pretty well. I honestly, from our perspective, I guess maybe not the best hockey game in the world, just because it was sloppy at times, and honestly, the fact that they even brought it back into overtime is impressive, I guess we'll say, given how much they struggled there for a lot of that game. But really fun game to watch, just from like a viewer perspective. Overtime playoff hockey is always cool. So, but yeah, it's going pretty well. How about you?
It's going all right. Would be better if the Griffins had won, but
Sure.
Can't control that. Other than that, had a pretty good Wednesday before that, so we take what we can get. Scotty, as far as difference makers go in this hockey game, I know we taught you mentioned it there, man. The game was just, the first 40 minutes was abysmal for the Griffins. They just did not look like they were ready to play. They looked like they slept walk through it, and they mounted a comeback and just barely fell short. They could not overcome who, in my opinion, is the first difference maker in this hockey game, Afanasyev for the Admirals, who ended up scoring a hat trick. Obviously, that means it included the OT winner as well. He was either fighting to go to the right place at the right time, or just took advantage of a fortunate bounce in all three of his goals. It put simply, right? Like, no need to break down his game. He was just the guy who scored all three goals for the Admirals, and that's like as clear-cut of a difference maker as you can get. And, Bob Kaiser said it after he scored the OT winner, but he's like, when things go your way, they just seem to continue to go that way. Because on the first one, that was all Afanasyev, and I don't want to take that away from him. He took the shot. Nobody went to clear the rebound, so he beat out everyone to the rebound. It was a lazy play, and he scored the first goal. The second one, every single save that Kosa made, the rebound went to an Admiral, and then finally, I think that was the power play goal.
Yeah.
It's found its way to Afanasyev, who was sitting at the top of the circle, who buried it. The third goal, he was just breaking down the wing and sent it to the net, went off a Griffins defender in for the hat trick and the OT winner. I mean, right place, right time, difference maker.
Yeah, hats off, really. Well, hats off, Patrick.
I thought that was intentional.
Yeah, it was totally an accident, but I realized how slick it was. Yeah, man. No, I mean, that's one where you just tip your cap and try to move on to Friday. Really, I mean, he obviously, again, like you said, 3 goals, all 3 of a team's goals, including an overtime winner, is kind of hard to top. But yeah, he was kind of flying too. And, obviously the goals are what people will look at. And you're right. I mean, the second and third one were, I think, more situational based, but you got to be able to take advantage of, the situation that's in front of you as well. And I thought he was really skating pretty well all night. So yeah, I mean, just, credit where credit's due, really.
Absolutely. Who do you have as your difference maker in this hockey game?
I mean, we were kind of talking about it off air before. We both talked about how good Wallinder looked, and I know that Boltman, I believe, put out there during this game a few times as well, noted how good he looked in this hockey game. And I think that that's a pretty easy one, especially just because, we've been talking so much about other names, and it's a nice reminder at how the phrase that you've been using lately is like how filled the cabinet is, right? Like it's a nice reminder in games like that, how we've been talking so much about so many other people, like Kosa's obviously one that gets talked about all the time, but just really, I mean, the forwards, Danielson getting the call up, etc. It's Wallinder is a guy that is still very highly regarded and that people are really optimistic about. That we haven't really said his name. I don't know if we've said his name once this postseason run, to be honest. And so him going out there and having as good of a game as he did, I think was a pretty big deal. And I think the phrase Boltman used was just like the most confident he had looked in the hockey game. And I think that was pretty easily agreed upon by anybody who watched this game. He looked really sharp.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first goal was his goal, obviously, and also shout out to Austin Czarnik. You could almost give difference maker to him as well, because they both had a goal and an assist in this game, and both of their assists were real pretty. On the first goal he scored, the first time they scored in this game at 4-on-4. Both of their goals weirdly came at 4-on-4 in this hockey game, but he jumped up into the play, took strides towards the net. Austin Czarnik, who had gotten the puck from Jonathan Berggren, found him streaking, and then just back behind his back, tapped it to him. And William Wallinder showed patience, saw the 5-hole, and scored on Yaroslav Askarov to make it 1-1 at the time. And then in the third period, it was a nice feed across by Johansson. Wallinder stepping in, finds Czarnik, then cutting to the slot and feeds him. Czarnik, 1-shot, 2-shot, off the inside of Askarov and in, and it was a beautiful feed from William Wallinder. And it's like Max said, right? The most confident he has looked with the Griffins in at least any of the games we've watched so far, which was just a handful of regular season games and then all of the playoffs so far. So you're right. It's like he has been, and I remember when he was taken, right? He was taken very early in the second round. In fact, I think that was in 2020. So the Red Wings would have had the first pick in the second round. So he was the first pick in the second round in 2020. I remember at the time I was really, really high on Wallinder, but he's kind of been just quietly behind the scenes in Grand Rapids from a fan's perspective as other players have risen up and gotten prominence. And it's already tough enough if you're a defenseman to, get the attention, for better or for worse, from the fandom, because people are so offensive oriented. That Wallinder, in the role that he's had, has kind of, fallen to the wayside. But he's still a very good prospect, and he showed that much in this game with the amount of confidence and the production that he had. And it was more than just that, right? All around, he had a really good game, but those two moments obviously stand out because as much as Afanasyev's goals won the Admirals the game, I mean, the goal and the assist by Wallinder is what made it get to that point to begin with. Like, the comeback would not have happened without Wallinder's presence of mind in those instances.
For sure. And again, like we talk so much and harp so much about the complete like player, because that's something that this front office and that Yzerman really drives home. So seeing him be as effective as he was, again, like on both sides of the ice, your point there, right? Like defensemen are, it's sometimes hard to get recognition. This was a game where it was very obvious on both ends, I think, how much of an impact he was having.
Absolutely. We're going to head to a quick break, and when we return, we're going to talk notable performers and just more of the game at large. So stay tuned to that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets, even MLB tickets as well. With last-minute ticket deals, you can save up to 60% of buying on last minute for sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and so much more. And flash deals allow you to save more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. All-in pricing allows you to toggle the total upfront with no surprise fees at the checkout. And that lowest price guarantee means that Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So check out Game Time, and if you're like Scotty, maybe get a couple of cheap tickets to watch the Tigers a few innings into the game after they're already down 8-0 when those ticket prices just plummet because the Tigers are just spiraling out of control right now, baby. It's mind-numbing to watch. I feel bad for you having to record after every single one of those games, buddy. I feel for you. I'm real empathetic. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA and MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, before we get to the notable performers, I kind of want to just riff a little bit about the game as a whole, because I don't want to just gloss over the piss-poor performance that the Grand Rapids Griffins had in the first two periods because they had a phenomenal third, right? Like, you're playing the first-seeded team. You have home ice advantage now in the series, and you just got routed in Game 2. Like, you've got to come out in front of the home crowd and put on a better performance than they had in the first 40 minutes. Through the first 25, 30 minutes of this hockey game, the shots were like 16-4. In fact, they were outshot 21-11 through the first two periods as a whole, and then had 15 shots in the third, finished just 3 shots shy. Like, the first 40 minutes, Admirals possessed the puck the entire time. The Griffins in the defensive zone were doing nothing but reacting, not acting. They were just puck chasing. They looked lost. And if they did get the puck, they'd carry it up the ice just to dump it and then not win the race to the puck, and it'd come back down the other way. Like, everything that was infuriating us about the Red Wings when they were losing was exactly what we saw with the Griffins. Just constantly getting hemmed in. And then because you're so tired, because you got hemmed in, you then dump the puck to either change or you're too tired to win the race for the puck and come back down. Like, those first 40 minutes were the most infuriating Griffins hockey I have seen in the, again, admittedly, right, handful of games of hockey.
In the Griffins 6 games I have watched, this was the worst performance. No, you're right though, man. What time period was it? I want to say it was the last 7 minutes of the first, last 5 minutes of the first, or maybe it was to open the second. Either way, somewhere around there, end of the first, beginning of the second, there was a solid like 4 to 7 minute stretch where they legitimately, like, when you say puck chasing, like, by definition, we're literally just chasing the puck to wherever the Admirals had it around the ice. It looked like, when like toddlers play soccer and there's no formation and it's just like
everyone's following the ball.
Like, my little sister played soccer, and that's where my brain went. But it's just like they all just formulate around the ball and there's no like anything going on. It's just kind of mayhem. That's like what it reminded me of for a solid, like I said, like 5 to 7 minutes there. It was just legitimately that. I don't know if they possessed the puck in that time period for starters. It was really not great, but again, like, to their credit, and this is something the Wings went through a lot as well, they bounced back and recovered and forced overtime and made it a competitive hockey game. And it's just very hilarious how they are the Red Wings affiliate. I can tell you that much. It was pretty safe to say that was pretty proven, I think, in this one.
I mean, the third period was just unreal, the parallels, right? The third period push, we always say, is very real for any team, but that was the amount of opportunities that they had going down the stretch there, and the fact that they did tie it up and even nearly took the lead right after they scored the goal. The momentum kept rolling their way, and it was you want to talk about a notable performer, like, there was a bit of a goalie duel there in the third period, especially. Like, Kosa had a very nice bounce back game, finished with exactly a .900 save percentage after the overtime goal. Like, he was in top form on a lot of the big time saves. But on the other end, Yaroslav Askarov, who was not tested at all in the first two periods, in the third period, made big save after big save after big save. So as bad as the first 40 minutes was, the last 20 minutes was an absolute I'll say it again, goalie duel. The two tendies, Kosa and Askarov, just were putting on a show of big stop after big stop. It was incredible to watch, but it was also infuriating because I don't want to say like the Griffins deserve to win that game because the first 40, you got to have a better first 40 minutes, but that last 20 minutes, like the only reason they didn't win that hockey game is because Askarov just stood on his head, and I don't know how the bulk majority of those pucks did not cross the goal line.
Yeah, well, there's that weird moment too with the push, the pad push and whatnot. But you got something to say about it?
I mean, we watched the goal. I think that it was not a goal. It would have tied it up 2-2 with 45 seconds left. Just for people who are unaware, uninitiated, didn't see the hockey game. The puck was on the goal line, sitting on Askarov's pad. He never had it covered. Mazur pushes the puck across the goal line, and then the whistle blows. So the whistle blows after the puck crosses the goal line. They refs huddle. They talk about it. They say no goal. We on the broadcast, like us listening to the broadcast rather, never got an explanation for it. So we're left to just make assumptions. And I'm assuming one of two things happened. Either they said intent to blow the whistle, or that they, Mazur had pushed Askarov's pad in, which you can't technically do. And that's why it was a no goal. But I don't know, man. Askarov never had the puck covered. It was always a live puck. So
intent to blow the whistle looks that. My assumption was push the pad, but
we don't know.
We don't know.
So, anyways, you were saying
it's from a rooting perspective. Like obviously, we want the Griffins to win and whatnot. It's certainly frustrating, but from a fan of hockey and hockey development, seeing two of the biggest goalie prospects in the sport completely just go toe-to-toe in a playoff game that again at one point became tied and then went into overtime is absolutely phenomenal. And I think I had a moment in there where I was just like, this is just fun, this is just a fun product to watch, and obviously again rooting for the Griffins, and it didn't go our way, but just from a fan of the game and the development of players and whatnot, it was that is peak AHL playoff hockey right there, baby.
Yeah, that's all fair too. I mean, I can't take that away from you. And let's not try to get too overly invested in the Griffins trying to win the Calder Trophy, right? Because this is all for us as Red Wings fans primarily. This is about development and watching how these players play. Yeah. The other thing I'll say, and then in segment 3 we'll get into the notable performers, but man, the penalties in this game were unreal. And if the Griffins could decline a power play, I would. But the fact that they only had 2 power play opportunities in this game, and one of them was cut short 5 seconds in because
decline a power play, I would is a great quote.
I'm just saying it's been brutal. There were a lot of penalties in this game that were guys stepped on sticks and then fell, and it's just yes. And yes, that is a tripping call. I won't argue that, but it's just really frustrating when you then look at what didn't get called for the Admirals, which was a lot of cross checks, especially in the second period. And then it's also equally frustrating when someone like LaRue on a delayed call will then fire the puck down into the empty net and get a 10-minute misconduct because that the Griffins won't answer the bell. They won't score on the ensuing power play.
Yeah.
LaRue, at some point, those antics that he keeps doing is going to hurt his team. But flaying the Griffins, you're free to do it because the power play is so abysmal that they're not going to score. The one legitimate power play that they had, they couldn't enter the zone on. And then again, the second one was cut short because they gave up a near breakaway and then got into the corner in the defensive zone, and somebody stepped on a stick. I think it was Mazur's stick, and then wiped out. And then a 4-on-4 later in the game became a 4-on-3 penalty kill, and that's the power play in which they score. Afanasyev scored his power play goal. So it's just the penalties in general, and I know a lot of them were just bad luck, but the penalties and the special teams just continues to kill this team.
Yeah, I mean, even both of the Griffins' goals in this game were 4-on-4s.
What?
What a ridiculous hockey game, yeah.
It got absurd too, because in the second period, like there were quite a few legitimate nasty cross checks that didn't get called, and meanwhile somebody accidentally steps on a stick and it's a penalty, and it's like, come on, dude. But I'm not going to blame the refs because the Griffins didn't do themselves any favors, right? Like those first 40 minutes, they didn't deserve to win the hockey game. It was only in the last 20 that they woke up. So I don't know. Just things that I observed and I wanted to say. That's podcasting, baby. Observe and say.
That's podcasting, baby. I'm gonna start saying that. That's podcasting, baby.
That's our new slogan.
Right.
We're gonna
Maybe this one won't cause a
no
9-game losing streak.
No. That's not on us. They won a couple more games before that losing streak began. That's not on us.
I blame myself.
We didn't cause that.
I think I did.
All right. We're going to head to a quick break. When we return, we will get to the rest of the notable performers because there are some good things to talk about, and actually bad. I do have one less than stellar one written down here as a notable performer. So stay tuned to that in segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring tool that can help you do it all. I can say personally, from somebody who has been the hirer and the person searching for a job, it is a massive help. When I worked at LCA and I used Indeed to hire, the way that it presented everyone's resumes in a clean, concise manner made it very easy to sift through who was and was not a good candidate for the job at the team store. And now that I'm unemployed and I'm searching for a new job, I tell you that looking for a job is super easy with Indeed because the algorithm learns your preferences and will then display you jobs that actually suit what you're looking for. And if you don't like that, you just type in a keyword and it presents you with all jobs based around that keyword. I've done most of my applying through Indeed, and it makes it super easy. A lot of the times, just 2 or 3 clicks because you upload your resume and it autofills a lot of those applications. So it's been super helpful to me on both sides of the coin, which is why you need to join over 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for just a limited time. Claim your $75 job credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Indeed you do.
There it is. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Thanks, Scotty. We are going to talk about notable performers now from this hockey game. We talked about Kosa and Askarov. We talked at length about Wallinder and Afanasyev as the difference makers, and even touched on Czarnik. Scotty, do you have anyone else who stood out to you as a notable performer?
Carter Mazur is someone who, when we were talking off air before, he was somebody that I thought actually played well enough to, and maybe, not production wise or points wise, but played well enough to be in the conversation of difference maker. I think if the game went in the Griffins' direction, that conversation may have been a little bit, had some more legs to it. But he is just such a stirrer. He is he's a dog, as we like to say, man. I love watching him play hockey. I think there's going to be a very legitimate role for him in the bottom 6 for this NHL team next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the more I watch of him, the more I am convinced he's ready to make the jump. Just with his play style. I really think that he is going to make that leap. The question is just where, right? Where in the lineup will
and that's really the thing that Boltman, when he was on the show, what was that, last week, pointed out, and he's exactly right, is you don't have to necessarily baby his playing time because he's probably that gritty bottom 6 player at his best anyway, right? That's not a guy that you have to like that you have to shelter the minutes for, or like the deployment for, or the usage and situational like type of stuff. You don't have to make sure like, oh, we need to get him wherever he's just going to get the most playing time, because his long-term role at the NHL level is probably that like grinder type of bottom six role anyways. Right. So that's why I am even more convinced every game I watch of him that him being in Detroit next year is more and more of a possibility.
Right. Spot on. I also, Simon Edvinsson did not play. Probably should have said that at the start of the episode, but slipped our minds. Still really obvious how much they miss him on the back end. His presence is just a steadying, calming presence back there. Yeah. And they yet again missed him as he practiced in full, but did not take in warmups, and then obviously did not take for the ice in the game. I've heard multiple or differing reports. Some say he's a maybe for Friday. Others saying he's probable for Friday. So hopefully he returns, and seeing as it's an elimination game, they desperately need him. The other thing, too, is Dan Watson really shaking up the lineup for this game, taking out a few small skill players and inserting some big guys. And he, on the pregame show with Bob Kaiser, they talked about it. He said the reason why they are taking out Amadeus Lombardi, Taro Hirose, and Captain Didier of the lineup was to put in Johannes and Wyatt Newpower and Luff, put them in the lineup because he wanted more size and physicality. He wanted to be able to get in the grime areas. He wanted to win the puck battles. He wanted to get to the net front. And, it almost worked. I would say the first 40 minutes, that experiment was failing horribly. But at the end of the extra time, they lost in overtime by 1, so they very nearly succeeded. It was definitely a choice. I wasn't super sure about that one, if I'm going to be completely fair, because, I know Ammo hasn't done a lot in the playoffs. I know Hirose's been cold lately, but taking out your captain Didier, scratching him for guys who don't necessarily bring a lot of talent, but just bring like size and grit, that was a choice in my opinion. I just really take issue with the Didier one, but I'm not in the locker room. I don't know. Other than that, like, I'm fine with it because not like Hirose and Lombardi were providing a lot anyways, and it did almost work, I guess. But it was a ballsy decision, I guess is the best way to put it. It was certainly ballsy.
I think more so now that like you went out and did that and you lost, like now what do you do for Friday? Like I think that's kind of where my head goes, is now you're in a really interesting position where you had won a game on the road with a different group, and it's 3 guys. It's not like it's an entirely different team, but like I don't know. I think that now you're going to have to make another like really gutsy decision on Friday too, whether to stick with that or not. And again, because it was so hot and cold, right? Because the beginning was so poor, but then obviously the onslaught at the end is what got you into overtime. I don't know. I think that it's gutsy. It's gutsy, and I think you're just in a position now where Friday you have a really, really interesting decision ahead of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad I'm not the one who has to make that decision. Anyway, Scotty, anything else from this game that you want to talk about?
I really just wanted to pump tires for Carter Mazur. Really like the biggest thing I wanted to do going into this. I just love the way he plays hockey.
Jonathan Berggren shoot the puck. That's the last thing I'll say.
Yeah, I know that's something you wanted to talk about.
Jonathan Berggren shoot the puck. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what you got to say.
We ball.
We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. We're planning on having Will Scouch on to do another draft profile, so stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.